Yeah, this comes from experience. Get help. The answer is get help. Raise your hand. Admit that you don't know what you don't know and ask the people who do to help you, especially in the restaurant industry, hospitality. Man, anybody who's been where you want to get before you, they are happy to share it. There's just no secrets, right? It's a formula, and just pick the formula that makes the most sense to you, or reconfigure the formula so that it's your version of it. But there's a formula of success in this business, and QSR versus fast casual versus full service casual versus fine. They all have their nuances, certainly, but fundamentals are fundamentals. Business is business. Employees and culture and leadership, it all applies equally across. And so I just tell people to get help.
All right, you know what? Troy, I'm actually gonna kick this off then with this. I want to get your advice on something because it's totally related to this, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's just really funny that we're talking about it because obviously you're the CEO of this company in North America, not just America, right?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO of North America, the holding company in North America, and co-CEO of the brand globally.
Yeah. Hot Palate America, and then Hot Pepper Lunch is the brand. But then you also have Kiwi Restaurant Partners, it's a consulting group, which is actually part of how you came into this.
That's right.
You have Nurish, you have Sandwich, you have your podcast now. So I've been asking my friends and colleagues this as much as possible because it's still really hard. I'd love to know how you block off time. I kind of know how you probably manage time because I heard you mention 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you deploy some of that and the Eisenhower Matrix, things like that. But how do you actually block off? Okay, I'm going to work on stuff for the restaurant group. Now I'm going to work on Kiwi stuff. Now I'm going to work on Nurish.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Look, 110% of my time is pepper lunch, and then the rest of my time is some of these other things. There's very little time left over, but at the end of the day, I do a little bit of time blocking. I need to get better at it. My assistant is helping with that, helping protect my time. I have to give her permission to do more protectionism of my time. But, one of the things that I think has made me, whatever level of successful I am, has been my curiosity and my willingness to spend my time and sacrifice my time to meet new people, hear about what people are working on, help answer questions for people. Because when you answer somebody else's question, you're really reaffirming for yourself, or you're learning maybe their perspective or their feedback or their pushback on something. So, conversations and opportunities like being on a podcast like this, they all have their value in the greater scheme of life. And I think it's made me a better rounded person and a more knowledgeable person. When you're sitting in a home office or a corporate HQ office, if you don't get out once in a while and hear what's going on, you may not be aware of where the world's going. So I always want to be diligent about that. It means that, I spend time in the evenings. I spend time on the weekends. I spend time sometimes on holidays, not Thanksgiving holiday weekend. That's the one a year I completely block out and turn off. For some reason, I just planted my flag with that. But otherwise, it really is about sort of 24/7, right? I'm up at 4:30 in the morning, knock out a full hour of email and also social media. So I do my LinkedIn posts and have my conversations online with the community that's built there and respond and support other people as well in that first hour or so. So, there's a routine there. It's just not super diligent. We block out from 2 to 4 every afternoon for me to not do calls. Look, I'm on the West Coast. Most people are not. So, it cuts out a good half of the people that would want to talk anyway. So, I get a couple of hours in. I block out time for family more importantly than anything. So until 8 a.m. in the morning every day. So 6:30 to 8 in the morning every morning, it's family time. It's time with my son. We have our routine where I get him up in the morning and spend time over making breakfast and doing all that. And then I actually pick him up about 4:30, 4:45 every afternoon from school. So I get a couple of hours in the evening, and that is blocked out and unavailable. But then, I'm working with my team in Asia. So we start calls at 6:30 at night, and I might be on the phone till 9 or 9:30 at night. It's just about doing the thing, at the end of the day. But some basic time blocking. When you talk about 7 habits, the one thing I take from the 7 habits is really sort of prioritizing things into different buckets. 7 habits uses, boulders, rocks, and pebbles, but basically big projects you need to chip away at over time, moderate sized projects you need to kind of be diligent about focusing on. And then the little rocks are kind of the day-to-day whirlwind, right? Trying not to get caught up and be a firefighter and put out fires all day, but really try to be as proactive as you can. So that's ingrained in me in a lot of ways, but I'm not as diligent with that as I should be. I'll give you an example. I used to spend every afternoon, an hour and a half every Friday afternoon at the end of the day, and I would plan the entire next week, right? As much as I could. And I would make sure to build in to work on certain things. And I have not done that as diligently as I would like to. And I think I'm kind of saying it out loud so that I'll focus on that here in the near term going forward, because there's some things that I want to accomplish for this brand and for other things in our life in that first quarter of the new year. And I want to kind of set it up now. So, you're never going to be perfect. You're going to have to like reset and, reevaluate and retool yourself every so often to get back on track.
Yeah. I mean, when you have multiple projects, and you have a lot of them, I always struggle with this of like the feeling of shit. I feel bad that I'm doing this one right now because I'm not doing this one. And that for me is the hardest part, right? Because like while I'm working on it, you know, and I don't know how you do this. I'm really curious. Like, do you literally just, and maybe it's just a personal mental decision to say, okay, I'm not going to do anything but this. Or if, let's just say you're working on Project X, right? And something happens at Project Y. I'm not going to name any of them because I don't know which one is. I know which one is obviously top of the top, but like, do you context switch, or are you just very diligent about like, okay, if I'm doing this, this is all I'm doing right now for this hour or two?
No, I context switch. This is public. I bought a wine bar with a couple of partners. I helped back a good friend of mine in the wine business. And there's a couple things going on. We bought it, we reopened it within about 4 weeks. And, we're still trying to stand it up and retool it and make it what we want it to be, right? It was an existing business and we're just on that path. And some of that's like the tech stack. Well, I'm Mr. Tech Stack. So the toast equipment arrived at my house on Saturday, right? So I've got to run the toast equipment over there. That's a really inefficient spend of my time, is to run the toast equipment over there. But I'll have 2 or 3 phone calls on that drive each way. And then when I get there, I'll spend an hour just focused on the wine bar for an hour. Then I'll get in the car and be back on pepper lunch on the drive home, right? So, trying to make the most of the time and be as efficient. But I context switch. On a Saturday afternoon, I'll put 2 or 3 hours in and do stuff for the wine bar, or work on helping somebody out who I offered to, be on their board of their business or whatever. Sometimes I just say yes to too many. Well, you know what? I always say yes to too many things. So it's tough. And it doesn't mean sacrificing other aspects of my life, which is why time blocking for family was so important, right?
Yeah.
My wife's a high achieving executive as well. And so we have to balance that. We don't have a nanny and we don't like have house help and all that kind of stuff. So, we make sure that we give each other schedule, and we talk regularly about each other's time blocking and when's the babysitter coming, because we're both not here that night, or I'm on a phone call with Asia. So it's a juggle. And you look at I look at a lot of parents with multiple kids or single parents with any kids. Like I can't even imagine when everything falls on you and there is no help, or you don't have that luxury that I have. And I'm very blessed and don't take for granted. But I earned that by working my ass off. So at the end of the day, it'll all pay off in the end, right? As they say.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Yeah, I have 2 kids, and even we have help. We don't have family around, but we have like cleaners and babysitters and things that come. But there's no substitute for the time. Just making sure you're with your kids, and it's the energy piece is the one that I try the hardest on. That's tough.
That's the hard part, right? Having the energy for the thing. Mm-hmm. Look, I'll say this since you started off this way, you just got to be okay with letting it go. Sometimes I don't perform at my best all the time. I don't do all the things I say I'm going to do for others. It eats me up alive. I can't stand it if I fall short of somebody else's expectations. Try to do a better job of setting clear expectations, better timelines, giving myself more time. But at the end of the day, look, if you get a cold or the flu, or you get a call and your kid has to come home from school, or their school is closed, love that. They just close on random days for fun. It is what it is. And I'm not curing cancer, and I'm not launching rockets with humans on them. So at the end of the day, if I go silent for 4-6 hours or a day or 2, the world's not going to end. The work's going to pile up. It is what it is. A deadline gets missed. It gets missed, and there has to be grace. It becomes about being better at predicting, and it becomes better about managing the future and learning from it and doing your best. But you got to give yourself room. We're all humans. And, I have a rule. We actually just talked about it in my staff meeting with my Pepper Lunch team is, it's the holidays for one. Let's give each other time and space. And everybody's got things going on and birthdays and all that. But also, like, it's also flu season, right? Two of my team members had the flu last week and couldn't be in person for all hands, and one couldn't even be online. They were not well. And I just said to the team to remind them, like, there's no judgment. Like, if I get sick, I'm the biggest baby on the planet. You're not going to hear from me. Everything's going to pile up. And by the way, if that phone rings right now and if family needs me anywhere in the world, it's it. I'm out. And doesn't make me altruistic or better than anybody. I'm giving you permission. If that phone rings or you get a text or something happens in your life and the thing that's of a higher priority than this job today needs to take over, it needs to take over. And I'm okay with that. And you need to be okay with that. So the team will rally, we'll pick up. We've had it happen already. We've had somebody have a medical situation where they unexpectedly, they have a lot of responsibility and we all had to pick up. So everybody will pick up. And you know why? Because one of us will need it and you'll pick up too when that time comes, right? So I think it's about giving yourself and others grace to be a human being and be okay with it.
And I think a lot of times also yourself, especially as CEOs or just, like people that work a lot or entrepreneurs, high performers, we tend to be the worst at giving ourselves the grace.
100%.
I had 103 fever yesterday. I mean, I was a chef most of my life. And up until very recently, there wasn't even the culture's changed a bit, which is good, but you didn't miss work. It just didn't happen.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, I'm sick today, or it's my wife's birthday, or you just didn't ever miss work. And I think that was really a big flaw in the, in the culture. I think it definitely has changed a bit.
Well, I'm not perfect. I've made all the mistakes, right? I, forgot to buy the gift. And so on the day of, it's like, oh yeah, it's in the mail. Amazon was late, whatever, right? No, idiot. You didn't plan and didn't give yourself enough time to order the thing or go to the store. I used to be really notorious for New Year's, Christmas Eve shopping in person, running around like a crazy person. Now I've got that down to maybe the weekend before. So I'm with all the crazy people the weekend before, but at least I'm a few days early. Yeah. You just, you gotta reprioritize sometimes.
Thank God for digital gifts. The stuff that you can plan to have arrive that day via email. So, we only met very recently through a mutual friend. And I'm spacing Jordan. And then now, it's funny, like it's surprising that we hadn't met before, but every time your name comes up, everyone's like, oh, of course I know Troy. Seems like everybody knows Troy. And you're really embedded in this industry in so many ways. But I am curious because I don't know you that well, other than now knowing a little bit of your work and getting to talk to you a little bit. Like how did you go from super yacht captain to doing what you're doing today?
Yeah. Well, the super yacht captain thing was like always a side project and passion. I started off as a young man, very interested I grew up in boating, grew up in Miami, spent a lot of time on the water, had neighbors and friends, and my dad's colleagues always had boats, and spent a lot of time in the Bahamas, Jamaica, Cayman Islands. Very, very fortunate. Did not grow up wealthy or anything specially privileged like that, but grew up in an affluent community in Miami that people had toys and liked to have parties and bring friends and neighbors along. So I got to ride along and mooch a lot of my life. But, there's two things I was really interested in as a young man. One was owning my own restaurant via being a chef. So I went to culinary school and I was always interested in boats. And I dated a girl in high school whose dad was a doctor and he owned a 72-foot sport fish. That's a very large sport fish boat. And I showed a keen interest and he said, being a chef, restaurants, it's, too much work, not enough money. You should be a diesel mechanic. I was like, look, I have no interest in being a diesel mechanic. I don't care what they get paid $300 an hour. It's insane. But I love boats and I'd love to be a captain, love to be able to drive big boats like this one day. And so he took me under his wing and put me through maritime school as a young man and let me use his boat. He taught me on his boat and let me use his boat to learn and practice and all that. And so I always did that as a side hobby. I did it as a side job, really. I went and had a professional career and stayed on this hospitality ladder and climbed as quickly as I could. But living in Miami and South Florida, when I moved to Fort Lauderdale, very convenient to just have that sort of side job where you could be what we called a cash captain. You could just have no responsibility over the boat day to day, but they call you and say, look, we just want to take it out for the day or the weekend or go to, and by the way, people take their yachts out just to go to lunch. because you can pull up to restaurants and stuff in South Florida on your boat. And so I used to do that. I did that for many, many years just as a side gig. And then when I got burnt out for a while, I wanted to take a break from the hospitality industry. I decided to do it kind of full time for a little while. And I went and moved to the Caribbean for a few years.
Wow.
And I did that. I ended up on some big boats. I ended up on the 10th and 17th largest yachts in the world, and really just got to cut my teeth and enjoy that and hone my skills and all that fun stuff. So yeah, when I do something, I don't do it lightly. I tend to go pretty hard at it. So when I did that for a little while professionally, I went really hard and ended up in a good spot. But yeah, it's just been my life. And when I don't have anything else to do. So I just do what I do really, really hard.
Well, you also cooked, right?
Yeah. So I was a chef for 6 years. Went to culinary school, worked my way up. Really, I never made it to executive chef, but that was okay. The goal was really to learn the skills in the business, the back of the house business. Ended up being a kitchen manager, ended up in the Hilton hotel system on the corporate side. And so definitely learned the business from the back of the house and then switched to the front of the house. I got my business degree and really wanted to switch to the executive management side of the business. And so I went from back of the house to the front of the house and worked my way up through fine dining and finer resorts and hotels and private clubs. Fast casual's only been in my life since 2018, QSR fast casual. So most of my career has been in the full service fine dining arena. But yeah, both sides of the system. And I thought that was going to be very important. I knew pretty early on I didn't want to cook for a living forever. And as an owner of a restaurant, no offense to chef owners out there, there's a lot missing if you don't do the time in the front and the business side and the culture building of the front of the house and the customer facing side. So I just wanted to get a well-rounded education in the business. And so I invested my time. And basically what that means is you just start at the bottom of the ladder every time. Like, all right, I'm switching from hotels to private clubs. Great. I'm switching from the kitchen to the front of the house. You basically just start at the bottom every time. And then you learn all those things from the ground up, the foundations, which I think are important.
100%. I was one of those chef owners, by the way.
We all have. Look, I started as a busboy. Everybody's like, well, where'd you get your start in hospitality? My dad built restaurants, bars, and nightclubs as a owner of a construction company. I thought I was going to be an architect. When I decided that wasn't it, and I was going to be a chef, first job was a busboy at a Bennigan's. Yep. Just happened to be the second busiest Bennigan's in the world at the time. Got very lucky, but ended up becoming kitchen manager there before I was 18 years old. So
yeah, no, you're right though. I mean, the skills and knowledge that you need to run a business are more than just being a chef. Right? I learned that sort of the hard way with my first bunch of restaurants. Just the things that you take for granted that you don't know, and you think just being a great chef is enough, and it's not. So, am I right that you also work at Procter & Gamble?
Yeah, I did a short stint when I got recruited in business school. I actually resisted pretty hard to not go into that corporate world. I really wanted to stay in hospitality, but a couple of things, they convinced me pretty healthily that there was a lot to learn and that I didn't realize until I got there. I mean, Procter & Gamble is a university of business and culture and leadership at the end of the day. Like, yeah, they sell products and they sell a lot of products. They sell a lot of brands, but my goodness, especially in the 90s, they invest so heavily in their employees, or at least, and I'm sure they still do. It just was one of those legacy businesses that understood that, developing your people led to longevity and success in your business. And so, they convinced me that there was an education, a continuing education, sort of an MBA to be applied right there. And then they made it, as a young man, and they wrote a number on a napkin ultimately, because I actually said no 3 times, and they wrote a number on a napkin, and I was a young man. And when I saw 6 digits plus, I was like, hey, wait a minute, I'm making 60 grand over here. What? I can get more. I can get how much money? So I did it for the money and the education. Turned out being the best thing in my career, in my life that ever happened. I found a lot of structure. I learned about leadership. I got a lot of humility, but I also was given a lot of empowerment and a lot of opportunity. And that taught me my leadership style. It taught me the importance of investing in your team, the importance of building a culture, and the ROI of that, the direct impact on the results of the business, and the empowerment, giving people the tools, resources, knowledge, and experience, being on the sidelines and available to them if they need help, but giving it to them and letting them do the job. Don't micromanage. And so really empowerment was a huge thing. And they would let you fall on your face. They would absolutely let you fail and then hold you accountable and then give you the new resources to try again and give you another chance and let you try again without fear of, oh, you're going to get fired or you're going to, you know what I mean, not get promoted or whatever. Like it was full on. They were all in on you when they brought you in. And yeah, so I did that for about 5 years, and that really set me on a path to accelerating whatever success I would have for sure. It molded me in a way that I needed in my mid to late 20s, and put me in a situation to really do what I wanted to do and do it well.
Was the next thing Kiwi? Is that what you started after that? Or?
Yeah. So after Procter & Gamble, I started working for corporate, Hilton Corporate and Vail Resorts Corporate in a joint venture, and then realized there was an opportunity on this consult. I was always getting calls, especially because of the Procter & Gamble thing. I was getting calls to be a consultant. Procter & Gamble is like the practical Ernst & Young. Like it's sort of like Ernst & Young or Deloitte, practical. Like, so I actually was learning how to sort of consult and give people advice on their businesses and things like that. And, I saw an opportunity after working early in my career, and then again after Procter & Gamble on the corporate side. I just saw an opportunity to help brands fix their problems. Like, so I ended up starting a management company called Kiwi Hospitality Partners at the time. And we put a little team together, and we went and did what we did called turnaround consulting, where or turnaround management. We would come in and consult or take over and manage resorts, hotels, private clubs, golf clubs, in some restaurant groups as well, and help them, repair whatever was broken, set the right systems and processes in place, and manage it to some level of new success, get them on a traction, and then turn it back over to the ownership, to the new management we hired, or to even a management company outside, which is very common on that side of the business. We've even sourced, like, we would hire our replacements. Like, we always said that our highest form of success was when we could fire ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. The goal was to get the business to where they didn't need us anymore. And so we got pretty good at that. And my business partner at Kiwi on the restaurant side, Mark Bailey, was out doing a one-man version of that in the restaurant, QSR and fast casual. And he was the guy to go in and help new emerging brands set up their systems and build a prototype and get ready for franchising and all that good stuff, and put all their processes in place. And he just got too much business coming his way, and he invited me to come help him. So, the hospitality thing, I was getting burnt out and looking for something. What was the next thing? And I just love restaurants. I really want to focus on food and beverage. And he said, hey, come help me on a couple of these projects. And I did. And man, I got the bug, helping emerging brand founders and small groups, particularly, strangely enough, almost all of our clients were private equity or venture capital firms that had made investments or acquired things and didn't have the talent on their team, so they outsourced it. So we ended up being the group they went to. So we kind of got into that club, so to speak, into that cohort. And that's been our clients ever since, including Pepper Lunch. I mean, that's how Pepper Lunch came about in our evolution. But yeah, so we got to get out there and help some emerging brands and help them set themselves up for success. And we did that as a consulting practice, as a fee for service business for a number of years. We've converted to a fee plus equity, and we're moving towards a full equity model where we're really only getting involved in any kind of project that we have significant partnership in. But that's just the evolution of our practice, and what we've decided to do as we've gotten older and spent more time in the business. But that's how we ended up at Pepper Lunch. They actually called us as Kiwi first. And my first mandate as the CEO when I was hired was to hire Kiwi as our outsourced infrastructure initially, until we could onboard our own infrastructure here in the US. So kind of a full circle moment, pretty interesting path that was never planned or expected, but I guess I'd say I wasn't too surprised by it either.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. You also mentioned a little bit ago that you're the tech guy, the tech stack.
Well, at Pepper Lunch I am, because we don't have a tech team or a CTO. I spent about the last 4.5 maybe years. I realized I've always been interested in technology, but I saw what was coming, and in a way, I saw some of these new things being made, and I was like, oh, what are all these new little companies popping up, and what are all these one-off singular service or products that they have? And once I started seeing integrations, the API world of how things could start to work together and maximize efficiency and really 1 + 1 equaled 5, 10, 20, I decided to study it. And so studying meant just spending time doing demos, spending time saying, look, I can't hire you as a customer today, but one day I know I will be able to. So please spend some time teaching me about this thing, and asking just questions, being very curious about the whole restaurant tech industry, and, know a lot about the hotel and private club tech side of operation systems and legacy systems, had to be a Micros programmer, right? I had to go to Micros school to freaking actually have a Micros point of sale. That was insane. So, seeing the evolution of it over my career, I got really curious about it. And I just thought, man, there's a lot of momentum here. I'm going to really need to know what's going on, and really wanted to be at the forefront, really wanted to be one of those people that was willing to test things and try things and get in early to see if there wasn't some, a value proposition that could differentiate a business that I was working on or working for or with. And, not just shiny objects for shiny objects' sake or cute toys and, gimmicks to, fake your way to success with your customer, but really things that my biggest interest is the back of the house stuff, is business operations systems. Really, I'm less interested overall in the consumer facing stuff than I am in the operational efficiency and profitability improvements and economies of scale that can come from these APIs and these companies working together, and by the way, consolidation. As these companies start to consolidate a little bit and things become a little bit more feature rich, I think it's an important aspect. So I put in the time, and it paid off. When I came to Pepper Lunch, they had no infrastructure, they had no plan. The company was just being stitched back together from being disparate across different master franchises over many years, and so there was an opportunity for me to really dig in and get real educated real fast and make real decisions that had global impact on this brand. And we've put together a really good package that I think we've got more tools for our franchisees and our franchisor business for the money than most get. I think we've gotten a really good value package put together, but we didn't get involved with any tech that didn't have a real purpose and a real value to the company and didn't solve a problem for somebody in the company, if not multiple somebodies in the company. So it's a big part of what we've done over the last 2 years. Thankfully, I think we're kind of done for now. So I'm excited to hand over those reins and not be the tech guy. People are like, oh, you going to FS Tech this year? It's like, no, I'm speaking at the one in Singapore and I'm not going to the one in Dallas. I just don't want to talk about tech anymore. In the day to day, I'm just tired of shopping for tech, right? I'm sure I can take 6 months off and I won't miss the boat on something.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I wasn't really super into technology, even when I was running my first restaurant, until I started running this group called Orify Brands. And I had to test every piece of technology across all, and it was great because we had 7 different brands to try it on. And so such a huge learning experience there.
And it's a lot. It's a lot. I empathize with anybody trying to make one decision about tech. How alone, we have 19 SaaS products. That we put together as part of the Pepper Lunch technology stack, and it's a lot. It's a lot,
man. I find the number one driver of lack of success and success, at least for us, was just adoption. Will people actually use this thing? And there's so many technologies there that are great, but nobody uses them, and it's just pointless. But I'm excited to talk about Pepper Lunch. I'm gonna just preface this by saying I haven't been to one yet. I live in New York. There's not one here, and I haven't traveled much in the last few months. But I will. I'm excited. I'll be out west soon, and I will check one out. And I think I heard you're coming to Northeast soon. Anyways.
Yeah, we have a few coming. Yeah, Northeast. Hopefully soon. We got some conversations going on in New Jersey. We're hoping for some New York stuff, but coming soon to a city near you for sure.
Well, I heard you chat a little bit about this. The metrics sound super impressive. The 1.5 million AUV, 1,700 average square foot of the space, and unless I'm wrong, I think you said 3 to 5 employees is all we're needed to run.
Yeah. So we're an inline 1,700 square foot concept. We don't need to drive-throughs or anything special. Theoretically, that's easy, but it's not easy to find. Real estate's tough these days. But you're going to build a store for under 800 grand. Yeah, 1.5 AUVs now. We expect that number to go up pretty dramatically over the next 2 years as these new prototype stores open in new markets. My goal is a $2 million AUV in the next 3 years. I think we'll hit 1.6 this year, 1.8 in 26. And then hopefully by 27, we're pushing something close to 2 million a store. One thing that's really good for us is our EBITDAs are very high. We're not audited, don't provide an item 19, so can't make a specific claim, but I can tell you that they're industry leading competitive EBITDAs for a fast casual concept, dramatically impacted by that labor model that you referenced. We have no prep labor in the building. We have no skilled labor. You don't have to have anybody with kitchen experience or skills from a cooking or slicing, dicing standpoint. And we do run the stores between 3 and 5 staff members per peak period. Really, it's 4 to 6 people in a properly busy store at peak day part. But as you've kind of come to know too, is day parts are sort of waning. It's sort of like humps, not peaks and valleys. It sort of flows up and then down, and then all of a sudden you got a line at 1:45 in the afternoon. You don't know why, so we, generally run the store between 3 and 5 people. The busier stores have 6 or so for the head peak period. But, that as compared to many concepts out there is a lot less humans. So your total labor costs are a lot lower because of all of those things and the efficiencies of the simplicity of the concept. Look, we portion and we assemble, and then you do the cooking on your plate at the table. So, the dishwasher is the dining room attendant, the food runner is the cashier, and then generally we'll have 2 people in the kitchen. So really efficient, high throughput, fast service model. We're serving dishes. If there's nobody in front of you, it's 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. If there's anybody in front of you, it's 5.5 minutes. Our busiest store, it's like 7.5 to 10 minutes max delivery time for food from the time you order to the time it's at the table. We're averaging a 24-minute table turnaround time from the time you order to the time you leave. You're in and out in under 24 minutes for generally under $20. So it's just an efficient model that has high net returns for the franchisor and a franchisee investor, and is, a real convenience play, but a real high quality hot meal, experiential, fast casual, interesting concept for the consumer. But they can also, get in and out for a reasonable value and at a reasonable time frame. So it plays a lot of the best practices that you look for in developing a concept or growing or scaling a concept. It really has a lot of these things that other brands are striving for today. One of my favorite things that I've coined as my own little catchphrase is I say that Pepper Lunch was built 30 years ago for today's challenges. That they didn't know when they did this design and this concept and this model 30 years ago how important it would be in an environment of such high labor and high commodity costs today, and real estate and all the other things that have come along with, is particularly the U.S. market cost basis. But those costs are not isolated to North America. We're seeing those challenges in many countries around the world. So we're really fortunate that this model was made a long time ago for solving today's problems.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to pick your brain a bit about the franchisee beforehand. I mean, it feels like a DIY teppanyaki kind of thing. And you said there's no prep, so I'm assuming everything, all the vegetables are just pre-cut and shipped to the store.
Sliced, diced, chopped, ready to go. Our fish is hand cut, custom for us in Ventura, California. By a specialized fish purveyor. Everything is sourced direct. We know where every ingredient comes from. The quality of these ingredients are incredible. They're far outweigh the value proposition of the price that you pay for them. But we're really good at negotiating. We're really good at global supply chain management and logistics. And we pass those savings on in the way of investing in the ingredients at a higher level. But yeah, everything's done outside the store. Our steaks are custom cut to our spec. Our meats and chicken is custom flavor blended, very high spec white meat chicken that is made for us and then sous vide to our specifications. So, everything we need that we would normally do inside of a kitchen to make this food available to you is done outside by our purveyors, and not even a commissary kitchen. It's not our own commissary. We're not managing that production as a brand, or you're not managing that production as a multi-unit franchisee. That's all done for us by our vendors and purveyors. And so it just allows the store to focus on what matters most, which is doing a really good job of managing portion, managing a consistent build of the product, and educating and providing hospitality to the customer, which is what you want your restaurant to be able to do.
Yeah, I know for sure. It's definitely like a very, very simple execution, setting them up for success. I love that. I'm talking to some friends of mine on Wednesday for another podcast with these guys, Bruce and Eric, who have a restaurant group called The Blue Ribbon. I learned from them very early on, 20 years ago. I just remember Eric just pounding in, like, you have to set everyone up for success, and that's not easy in a restaurant. There's so much complexity. So it sounds like you've removed a ton of those complexities. I am super curious, like, how that supply chain works, like the vegetables and the fish. So the fish, is there one distribution center, and how do they package that and send it to you? Is it like sliced daily? Like, what is that like? And also, I'd love to learn about the QA process.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you asking that. That's something we don't talk about very often, but it's one of the highest importances to this brand. Look, being a Japanese concept, most people don't realize that the Japanese, particularly, and Asia as a whole, but the Japanese in particular, have the highest standards in the world of quality assurance and quality control and production cleanliness, et cetera. Highest, absolutely, by far, by multiples. And they look at the best purveyors in the United States and they're like, there's some things we could require you to do. And we do. We require our vendors to do that. So I'll go backwards from the QA/QC, which is really interesting. We have a global QA/QC team. We also have a team here in the US assigned to support that global team on the ground level here in the US. But that QA/QC team came here every 5 weeks for a year and a half. And every single vendor we already had and any vendor we looked at, we do a first and a third party food safety and facilities inspection. And we tell them what our spec and what our health and safety standards are, and they have to adopt those when doing our production. So if they're slicing our beef, cutting our steaks, hand cutting our fish, etc., when they do that, they have to stop production, retool the line, make sure the training is right for the team, make sure that any extra measures we're requiring are in place when they do our food, and that we will spot inspect that. And that we monitor the quality of every one of those ingredients. You cannot source, produce, process, hold, store, or ship our product without us doing that. And so going to a new country, when we go to Canada next year, it's going to take us at least 6 months to replicate that in Canada because of the QA/QC process that we have to go through. Most brands don't do that, not to that level, and certainly not to the depth that we do it. That's just to say that it's particularly an Asian and Japanese specific cultural and business mindset that drives that, which I just absolutely appreciate because the investment is there and the investment is significant. You know what it costs to fly over here from Japan every 5 weeks? Like the hotel and the flights and those people's time, and then hiring the third party companies for every single one of our purveyors. It's thousands of dollars for every inspection, but we do that because we wholeheartedly believe in ensuring that our quality is and our standards are maintained and met. On the global supply chain, we're very fortunate in that my superior who hired me comes from the food and beverage global supply chain industry. He comes from working in sauce manufacturing, food additive manufacturing, logistics and shipping, global supply chain establishment for brands, et cetera. So he and the entire team that he has stood up in Asia have been phenomenal. I'm really lucky that Mark Bailey, our COO, has a very strong procurement and supply chain negotiation history here. So he was our liaison, but we became our own importer, licensed importer. We import products from Japan and Thailand, and soon from other countries. We were able to source things that we normally would buy in Asia. Some of those companies have production here in the United States, so we were able to work with them and get some of our products actually made here. We're working on our equipment to potentially be made here. We have a proprietary hot plate and induction unit that's manufactured for us in Asia that we're working on potentially producing here to reduce some of those costs and logistics challenges that come with that. So, this is a huge part of our business, is the logistics. We stood up an entire logistics company for the brand just to manage these partnerships and globalize the brand so we have standards that are equal. Like, look, the fish that we serve here in the United States is sourced into and processed in Ventura, California. We're not importing fish from Asia, and they're not exporting fish from the United States. But most people don't know this, is that Japan imports all of its beef from the United States. So Pepper Lunch in the United States has the great advantage of leveraging the volume of our global purchases of beef to Asia here. Like, I have a 5-store chain. I'm paying 50 store prices because I have 5 stores, right? Yeah. Because I'm leveraging that economies of scale and that relationship on a global scale. So, when you have that volume and you can leverage any of it anywhere, it always is going to result in, consistency and security, but also at the end of the day, cost reduction, right?
That's awesome. So it's produced and fabricated in California. If you go to East Coast, like New York, something, how does that work? Do you fly it every day or something? How do you get that?
Yeah, that's a really tricky mathematical equation, and I take zero credit for having anything to do with it. I understand national pricing parity as a concept and have been involved in it multiple times, but I'm very fortunate that my superior, it's funny, we all wear a lot of hats, which is really fun. We all have our areas of responsibility, but we also have our areas of highest competency. And so he's my boss. He's my co-CEO, but he's also my employee on procurement. So literally, he'll take that hat off and go, okay, boss, I'm your procurement manager now. Let's talk about logistics and supply chain. And I think it's awesome. It's just fun.
I love that dynamic. That's awesome.
But yeah, so he along with Mark, they basically, after we selected our vendors and our suppliers and our distribution, they went to work negotiating the contracts and negotiating what we needed. And here's the reality. Every brand participates in that supply chain. And since we are actually organizing, speccing, and ordering the products, we are the importer. There is some margin in that when we sell that to a distributor and the distributor sells that to our franchisee, and we're able to use that to offset this investment and to make further investment. And one of the things we can do with that is we can invest it into the supply chain so that our franchisee in Pinellas Park, Florida, St. Pete, Tampa Bay, Florida, is going to pay the same price for every single ingredient, no matter where in the world it comes from, as we do in LA, which is where it lands, right? All of the stuff from Asia lands in LA. So when it lands in LA, it's one price, but getting it from LA to Tampa, Florida, or St. Pete, Florida, or to New York, or to Miami, or to Oklahoma, boy, those are really specific costs, like expensive costs. That's a real supply chain challenge. And when we can take our investment and reinvest it into the supply chain, we are subsidizing those cost differences. So if the product is 20 to 30% more to get it to Florida, if we can offset that in a subsidy and pay down that difference and take the savings in LA and the savings in San Francisco and the savings on the West Coast and apply that back into the supply chain so we can reduce the cost to our Florida franchisee, that's what's considered national pricing parity. We're able to get national pricing from our distributors on every single product to every city in America. That is a huge advantage, because it's a major disadvantage as a franchisor trying to sell franchises to people who are like, well, I'd love to open in New York, but it's 45% more on everything. How am I supposed to make any money at this business? I'm going to make 45% less than the guy in LA. Come on, that's not going to jive, especially on a national brand or an international brand going national in North America. So we made that investment very early, and we're very, very proud of that. And it's going to pay off massive dividends for our franchisees, and we're going to be able to be very, very transparent about what our franchisees are able to accomplish in their stores from a margin standpoint and profitability standpoint going forward because of that system being in place.
That's awesome. I mean, does it come by air? Like, do they have a different way to place the order in Florida than say in California?
Nope, it's all national distribution. So we have two national distribution channels. One's called Wismatech, which if you're not in the Asian business, you don't know what it is, but Wismatech's like the world. It's the Cisco of Asia, of the Asian food products of the world. And so every sushi restaurant, every ramen restaurant, every Korean barbecue restaurant in America probably buys from Wismatech. And then we use Cisco on a number of products as our secondary channel distribution. There's items that Wismatech as an Asian distribution partner doesn't carry. A lot of the regular daily commodities they don't carry, like the vegetables and certain sauces and dry goods and things like that. So Cisco's our secondary distribution channel nationally for that as well.
Gotcha. So, I mean, this is true for any company that you start to license as a franchise. You have two customers, basically. You have the customer that's dining there, and then you have the customer that's going to become a franchisee. It's very clear for you that both are equally important, that they both have to be really successful. So I'm curious how you think about sort of vetting these franchisees. I know you talked a little about the commitment, like a 5-store commitment, and you could pay some, at least $150K up front. So that certainly means somebody needs to have that capital. But what's required in order to become a franchisee?
Yeah. Look, there's a game that's been played in our industry for a long time, and I'm just really happy to see. I had a call this morning with a group, really impressive group that is a lot like my Kiwi group in what they do, basically an outsourced fractional C-suite to help brands become franchisors and do it right. Look, the industry has a bad reputation in some circles, and I think over the last 5 or so years, it's gotten a lot better. I think there's a lot more people in this that are taking this more seriously and being very professional at it and having great success. So that breeds other people to do it right. But look, we've got a history in this industry of a lot of people cutting corners and sort of saying things, making claims that come back to bite them in the butt. So I've always been really sensitive to that. I don't want to say, we've sold 700 franchises and 100 open, right? You never open the other 600. That's a game that I don't subscribe to and don't like. And I think that that's become more obvious to the market. And I think people are more savvy and doing more due diligence and taking these investments more seriously. Look, we've got a unique model, a little bit more unique. It's less and less unique today, thankfully, than it was 5 or 8 years ago when we started doing it. But we require a minimum of a 5-store commitment, all franchise fees up front. So for us, that's a minimum of $150,000 check on day one. The old school way was, I'll sell you a $30,000 franchise or even a $50,000 single unit, and then you just give me a deposit, $5,000 and $1,000 or nothing on the others. And there's no skin in the game. There's no incentive for them to open those stores. Look, if you wrote me a $30,000 check times 5, times 10, times 20, that's money you're not really as excited to walk away from. Obviously, if we're not doing our job and we're not the brand we said we were and we're not doing the things we promised we were going to do, you should walk away and you should probably sue to get your money back. That's the way America works. But if we do our job, then we've earned that, and we think that we're worth that investment up front. So we've set a bar of 5 units, $150,000 up front, day one. And we also took the development schedule to a more aggressive level, because most brands will give you 5 years to do 5 stores, or basically a store a year, no matter how many stores you buy. And so if you buy 10 stores, it's 10 years till you open the last store. For us, we know that this brand is simple to operate, easy to scale. You don't need skilled labor. You don't need a lot of labor total. You don't have to hire a lot of people. Most of our stores are 15 to 18 total employees on the payroll for part-timers. And you don't need a GM per store, so you don't need high skill or high executive type level. And there's no cooking, and there's a lot less equipment. So these are very simple to build, quick to open, easy to operate. And so in that vein, there's no reason that you need extra time, so to speak. Really, it's a real estate problem more than anything. So if you can solve the real estate problem, and you're experienced because you have already operated or currently operate restaurants of one or more brand in your market, then you should have a knowledge base that and an infrastructure and a resource base that allows you to do that. And so we make it 5 stores in 3 years or 10 stores in 6. Even our 20-unit franchisee told us he'd have them all open in under 5. And so we think that breeds a more serious franchise partner, somebody who's higher invested, somebody who's probably more experienced, somebody who wants to get stores open quickly so they can start to realize their ROI. And for us as a brand, it just takes a lot of the work off the top. We actually reinvest the work it would be to have a bunch of single unit franchisees into those large franchisees by providing them a lot of hands-on resources, very, very professional hands-on resources. And most of our system is mandated anyway. So we're helping project manage and guide and shepherd that process along to be as quick and efficient and make sure the quality and standards are upheld across the board. So we're really involved. And so we invest. We'd rather invest in the relationship, with high quality, experienced, sophisticated operators, and not be in the, no offense, mom and pop, single store, first time restaurateur type environment. It's just a different business model we subscribe to.
Sounds like it's working. So I want to make sure we don't leave this episode, by the way, without you giving a little advice to like the folks that are starting to scale their restaurants that are in the 3 to 5 location and scaling up from there. But before we do, you launched a podcast recently. I'm curious, just because it's been a couple years of this one. Initial learnings. How's it been going? How has it impacted things? I'd love to just hear your thoughts. So many people are now doing it. I think it's such a great medium just to have conversations.
Yeah.
Independent of everything else, by the way, just to block off time to chat with people. But how has it been going? It's the Pineapple Perspective.
The Pineapple Perspective, yeah, with Troy Hooper. It's sponsored by Pepper Lunch, thankfully. Yeah, look, I wanted to do something like that for a long time. I want to share my experiences, share what I've learned, also share my resources of my network and community. And in sharing and helping, also I learn, right? I learn what people are doing, how they're doing it, where their mind comes from, how they came up with so many cool concepts, so many great innovations, so many interesting developments of how people are doing things in the industry when you play in that world. And so the podcast, like you said, is really just a place to have those conversations with people of all levels across the entire industry. The idea, the thesis is, I believe every business should be in the hospitality business. And what does that mean? And what does that mean to a CEO of a tech company, right? What does that mean to a vendor supplier? What does it mean to millwork or a sign maker, right? What does it mean to a restaurateur at different levels or an executive at different levels? How does that come to life every day, right? How do we bring that to life? And then I like to just talk about a couple of topics that are relevant that I think they have a perspective on. Look, just having those conversations, the purpose was to record what was already happening in private and share it with the world. And hopefully people can learn something and learn about new people, learn about new companies, learn about new products. That's always fun. And it's part of the end of the show. I make sure everybody gets their infomercial in and gets to promote themselves. At the end of the day, I'm building trust and authority and awareness of me and my brand and Pepper Lunch brand along the way. And then, ultimately be the show, not the commercial, right? Have interesting conversations where people discover you and your brand and learn about it and want to know more. And they'll reach out. Like, it's not a hard sell. It's not a commercial. We actually don't even do commercials in the show, right? Pepper Lunch is just the sponsor. The badge is there. We say it at the end, at the beginning and the end. And we leave it at that for people to volunteer and ask for more information if that's what they're inclined to do. But yeah, I've wanted to have these conversations out loud for a long time. And I'm a big subscriber to Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, most people know. And, that between that and Sean Walchef kicking me in the ass for 4 years saying, get your show. You need a cell phone or a Zoom link and a conversation. You don't need a big fancy production to have a podcast. So I think all the stars aligned to make it easy and available. And so I took advantage of it and it's going great. I think we're 35 shows recorded. I think 25 or so published. We put one out every Thursday afternoon on all the channels and platforms, and we do the video recording and put that out on YouTube like you do. And yeah, it's been really interesting. I'll say the biggest surprise with the podcast is people I don't know walking up to me at shows and telling me that they've listened to every episode. And I'm like, excuse me? What? Because I don't consume like that. I consume based on the person or the topic. So I follow probably 6 podcasts, but I've never listened to all of any of them. Like I scroll through them and I'm looking for, I want to hear what that person has to say, or I'm really interested in that topic or the perspective of that person on that topic. That's how I consume. So I just assume that's how a lot of people consume, but some people just listen to every episode and, like you binge watch your show, Yellowstone or whatever on TV, on Netflix. They do that for podcasts. So that was a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting that anybody would want to listen to me over and over again like that, but it's been fun.
Great, man. Congrats. It's cool to see that happening in the industry, reacting that way.
Yeah, it's different. I don't, if that's what celebrities like, but you can't leave your house, I don't think I want that. But within our industry, if 200 people know who I am, hey, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, you've consulted on a ton of brands, and obviously now are running a really large one and have done a lot of this along your career path. I'm thinking specifically of like the folks with like 2 to 5 plus locations. They're starting to scale, starting to see the problems with scale. So not like, folks at scale, maybe before they get to that private equity, venture-backed state. Any advice you could share that you think would be helpful for them?
Yep. Yeah, this comes from experience. Get help. The answer is get help. Raise your hand. Admit that you don't know what you don't know and ask the people who do to help you, especially in the restaurant industry, hospitality. Man, anybody who's been where you want to get before you, they are happy to share it. There's just no secrets, right? It's a formula, and just pick the formula that makes the most sense to you, or reconfigure the formula so that it's your version of it. But there's a formula of success in this business. And QSR versus fast casual versus full service casual versus they all have their nuances, certainly, but fundamentals are fundamentals. Business is business. Employees and culture and leadership, it all applies equally across. And so I just tell people to get help. There's no reason to spin your wheels, to lose money and to lose precious time and lose momentum, especially in a moment if you've got something that is popping off as a concept or an industry in the industry, or a genre or something. But if you think you've got something and you know it because you've got 3, 5, 10 stores open in different sub markets of a major market or whatever you've done, you've proven that you can do it. Now you just need help to understand how to do some of the concepts we talked about on the show here and all the other concepts. You need, just get help. And I'm really happy that Kiwi, my firm, has grown up to where we are in managing and building out this brand and things like that. But there are others like that out there, and there's one-man shops and there's groups and there's firms and all. There's just a lot of help out there, and it doesn't have to be super expensive, but it's not free. And by the way, on free, you just tell the world what you want to do. Just tell everybody what you're trying to do. Hey, I've got 5 of these stores in so and so place, and this is what we do. And man, I'm just looking to figure out how to get it from 5 to 50 or 5 to 15. Like, just set your sights reasonable and tell the world, because like attracts like, be a magnet, right? Like, attract people to you rather than try to sell people or buy your way into the solution. There's just a lot of people out there that would love to be an advisor on advisory board, a strategic advisor, maybe a small investor, right? You find the right person that's in it for the right reason, that believes in you, believes in your brand, and wants to help you. Or if, you just keep asking and they introduce you to other people, eventually you get introduced to enough people. And the other part of that is, in asking for help, is you got to get out there. You got to go to a couple of conferences or summits or, regional, local, or national events where the topics are of the things that you need to learn. Because if the topics resonate with you in areas you need to learn, then the speakers are people you want to speak to. Stick around at the end and introduce yourself to the speakers. Ask them for their contact. Give your contact. Say, hey, can I get 15 or 20 minutes, in a couple of weeks from now, and pick your brain about just that one topic? I'm trying to learn more about technology in restaurants. I'm trying to learn more about supply chain. I'm trying to learn more about marketing in restaurants. Whatever that thing is that you feel you need higher competency in, ask for help, and when necessary, and it makes sense, maybe even pay for it. But at the end of the day, you got to ask for help. It's the only way. You're not going to do it on your own.
I love it. All right. You heard him. Ask for help. We're going to put all your links and everything in the show notes, and we'll post about it as well, so people
That'd be great.
Don't have to remember it. But Troy, grateful for the time, man. This was awesome.
Awesome to talk to you. Thank you for having me on.